Okay, 1, 2, check. All right, for this podcast, I think I'm completely on my own. But it's the 24th podcast. Welcome. Last weekend, it was Halloween. I had quite a bit of festivities during that time. Uh, I don't usually go out much, but when I do, it's usually pretty fun when it comes to like just group gatherings with my friends. So last week, like all the four speakers plus a couple others of our friends ended up going out to like a local corn maze. Pretty fun. But one thing that just ruins from the experience is just like knowing maps way too well. So I don't know. There's two of us in the group that have like played video games exclusively since we were kids, and so I think Pokemon does this pretty well. But like sometimes when you have to well, rather not sometimes, but when you're navigating maps, I think like Pokemon's one of those things where you just like follow guides online, or like I used to get some of those guides for understanding or like getting some of the legendary Pokemon, and you have to like follow a specific track or go to specific places out in the Pokemon universe that you're playing in. And so following a map was pretty much necessary in order to accomplish what you wanted. And so I think we've had plenty of practice when it comes to reading maps and understanding you know, really visualizing yourself where you are on the map and like being in person, experiencing it at the same time. So um, even though like Pokemon, you were like virtually experiencing where you were on the map, it still is kind of the same thing. You have to have like some sense of understanding of where you're going. And I mean, most like when you were kids, anyways, you would pull up some of those maps at restaurants, and it would be like you start here and you're supposed to end outside of this maze, and you grab your red colored crayon and get your get yourself over to where you need to go in the activity. And so I think most people who are able to follow a map should have like an easy time during a corn maze. But the way we went about it, we just put the maps down unless if we got like really stuck, or um, in our case there was like a bunch of muddy areas like in the corn maze, since it had just rained. And so we were just walking around in some mud every once in a while, and when it came to that, like we took the map and tried to get ourselves out of it, or like progress further so that we're no longer in the gross zone. But no, I thought it was pretty fun. Had a katsu burger, pretty interesting. It's been a long time since I've had a katsu burger, actually. So, but yeah, it was really good. And like overall, the experience was phenomenal. So I wouldn't trade it out for anything else. What else today? I was going to talk about some other things. Ooh, I see Alon just hopped on. He did ask me about what this week's podcast was going to be about, so we'll see if he ends up getting on today. Um, Feeling after a week off. So part of the talk today was going to be about like, or rather the topic of today was answering the call to responsibility. And I'm not too sure if that's the like correct way to put it, but part of what inspired this topic was I was feeling kind of burnt out from a lot of the responsibilities that I was dealing with. And so trying to separate myself from the ones that I didn't think were necessarily necessary anymore. Um, and so taking I don't know, for some odd reason, I thought that I just needed to stick to this podcast as much as possible, try to take as little amounts of breaks as possible, because the second I start slipping up with like responsibilities is when things start going like downhill really fast. And that's like something that I've noticed in my own behaviors for quite a bit. In fact, I think that's what happened during my depression phase too. It was like there was always this call to responsibilities that I had like internalized. And so whenever I wasn't doing that, I'd get like anti-dopamine hits pretty much. I don't know, it would turn me into the negative so much that it became like internally harmful towards myself. But the like having those calls to responsibility are 100% needed. I wasn't answering them in the way that I should have been doing them. And there's no better way to answer the call to something that you feel like you should be doing with actually doing it. I think that's really the only answer that you can have for that. Oh, I just got a warning on YouTube. Oh well. Oh well. Yeah, we'll see if Alon hops on maybe sometime in the future, or like in like a short amount. Otherwise, we can keep going. Um, so yeah, this idea is coming back because I think as of recent, I haven't been answering a lot of the calls to my own responsibilities. In truth, I don't think I've been performing that great at work. I don't think I've been performing optimally at school either. Um, and part of that is like, I think my sleep schedule for sure. Like one thing that I think is having more effects than I anticipated is sleep scheduling. So I like to work out every day. And for some reason, I was like a lot more energetic over the summer. However, my weight didn't shift too much over the summer either. So about like May of 2021, I started running, or April 2021, I started running outside, and I would run pretty much like for 30 minutes, and then I would do some late night uh, cycling sessions, and that would last me about an hour. And now I'm to the point where, well, actually, since it started raining a bunch, like seasonal Washington shit, it's been raining since like September, and so I haven't been running since it's been raining out, which I really should. I think if I wanted to, well, okay, when I say really should, I don't think that's like a call to responsibility instance. I think that's more of like, I put down the idea that it's like not that important for me to run because I'm also cycling at the same time still. But I think also exposing yourself to being outside has its benefits, and I think it had more benefits than what I expected. I think that would also help with my sleep schedule too. Part of my sleep schedule is dictated by playing like video games late, but also I also do schoolwork late at night. Parts of what I'm doing at work is a bunch of learning stuff, and I'm not too ecstatic about that because I'm also learning a bunch of other stuff for school. So it's just been like a whole learning experience, and that's how it's been in the past. However, like I used to create solutions more frequently than I do now, and part of that is because I had more time to create solutions. It was both a learning experience while I was on the job as well as generating solutions for the company. Now I just feel like it's completely learning, and I don't know. I think part of it is like I've lost motivation to like learn outside of the school environment. Um, Either that or like I'm learning too much. And I know for me, if I learn too much, it's like I need to cripple down for a little bit and try and understand everything that's going on. Like I can't I some people can learn really fast. I've got a bunch of brilliant role models at the company I work for, and they can pick up stuff, connect the pieces super quick. For me, I feel like there's like more complexities into what I'm thinking about and how I learn. Um, so I feel I feel really disadvantaged when it comes to those other people, because they're brilliant. They're straight up brilliant. I don't know what else to say. It's like, but making those comparisons between me and them isn't going to be helpful to my own growth at the company. So, um, you for me, I used to get like these calls to responsibilities that like, oh, you need to be someone you're not. Um, being like, you need to be better at learning stuff at a rate that can match everybody else in the industry, because that's the kind of standard that you're setting up, or that's the kind of standard you need to be holding towards yourself, because that's what companies want. And yeah, that is true, but then that's also, is there any difference between asking that of me and asking me to change who I am completely to be someone I'm not? And when you weigh those two out, one of them's like, you know, it, one of them is pretty much comparing myself to everyone else in the industry, and the other one is like asking the impossible. And really, there's no difference between the two. So the best you can do is, are you doing the best you can? And if it's yes or no, then make adjustments or not. Anyhow, so this topic was also like one thing that I keep coming back to. I said it in one podcast where we were talking about like dreams for the future. I forget which one it was. I think it was like the ninth one or something, but there was a point that I hit in there that I really liked, and it was, when you're a kid, you can understand future responsibilities that you want to hold as your dream job. It's like, you know, in the future that you want to have responsibility, and having that responsibility is what is going to give you meaning. That's what the dreams are for the future. And so I really like that idea, and I'm trying to stick with it. And maybe we can expand on it quite a bit. So with the jobs, you can understand, like, as a kid, you have like some sort of idea of what job you're looking for, or what career you're looking for, what kinds of responsibilities that you want to hold in the future. When you're an adult, you get a reevaluation of the things that you want. So you have a better overview of what's like more realistic for you, per se. Like, I mean, for me, actually, like, I used to want to be an astronaut, and now I'm kind of under the impression that that kind of responsibility is not for me, even if like I met all the other conditions of what it means to be an astronaut, which I clearly don't. So not only am I underqualified, I don't really want to take on that responsibility either, because I mean, no one can no, like, one individual can be an astronaut. You can't just like build a spaceship with your own money and just fly yourself up there and know how to navigate everything on the process of going to another planet or going off the planet. Like, that's just, there's so much involved with that. You can't be a single man, like single man astronaut for accomplishing like a dream that you want to have. And like, who knows, maybe you can automate everything so you don't have to think as much when you're like in the moment. Maybe just have like a bunch of computers do all the have a bunch of computers be your crew. But you know, that's not realistic as of now, and so the dream dies, and you put down that idea of what you want to be responsible for in the future, and then you don't think about it again, which is interesting. So when you have these like responsibilities that you have for the future, you don't let the call to action to be an astronaut take over your internal thoughts anymore. It's like you put it down, you like store it somewhere else. You don't really care, because it's no longer like something that you can achieve or think you can achieve, and that's no longer meaningful to you. When you're like an adult, yeah, I guess that's the shift of what happens when you're an adult. Um, but also, like, as an adult, you could be pursuing like one career, from my understanding, and coming from like a coding boot camp background, a lot of the people that go to those institutions start with a different career and then move over to like coding. So a lot of those people don't want to go through the university process of getting a degree again, when they've already had a degree in something else, and instead try to learn the skills needed to be like a coder through these coding boot camps, and that's kind of the pathway of what, um, or rather, that's the description of the pathway that they're taking. So I've seen those kinds of people, um, and it's interesting. It's like for most of them, from what I've heard, is they're no longer interested in the previous career they were a part of, and so now they're trying to find meaning through a different challenge or through a different career. And I think that's great. And frankly, I'm a huge fan that humanity's lifespan is long enough so that people can make those decisions, and that they're also financially stable to make those changes for themselves. Because I think pursuing what's meaningful is probably the most. I don't think there's any better way to live life except for pursuing what's meaningful to you. So I'm glad that there's an environment that's in place that allows you to pursue your passions, or like also pursue yourself. I don't think there's any difference. So roles. So instead of just like jobs in particular, I think the roles condition change as well. One thing that comes to mind that a lot of my friends are gonna bash me for is bash on me for is having children in the future. So I know a lot of them aren't a huge fan of the idea of having children. Um, and to be honest, neither did I. I think, like, personally, the idea to have children that comes up for me is like, I kind of know, I don't know, for me, it's like I have such a struggle with understanding existential meaning. And I feel like if I don't have an answer to the questions that I have about existence, so much so that it's almost led me to kill myself, if I don't have an answer for that and I know the kind of range that people suffer through, how could I have like a kid knowing that I wasn't prepared to answer that question for them? You know, it's like there's so many truths out there about like why life isn't worth living, but there's also a lot of truths of why life is worth living. And from the perspective that is mostly negative, which is mine, if like my kid were to have those same negative perspectives, I don't have that kind of power to sway that for them. And that's I don't think I can manage that responsibility if it ever came to that worst case scenario. I think I could be competent enough to be responsible for like a child. But if it came to the point where they don't understand why life's worth living anymore, I can't provide them with that answer. And this whole time I thought I wanted to have kids until I had like the depression phase, which was like life wasn't worth meaning or wasn't meaningful anymore. And I couldn't convince a kid why life was worth living anymore. So until I find that answer, I'm not ready for kids. But anyways, I would like to have kids in the future. But I know like my friends don't want to have that responsibility, nor do I think they almost see it as a responsibility to not have kids. It's like in this overpopulation or overpopulated planet, or rather it's becoming overpopulated. It's almost your job to not have kids in the future, so that you're like doing your humanity's job of not continuing on the human race. But I think that's definitely an oversimplification of what they actually believe in for that. But for what their reasons are, it's just a responsibility they don't want to hold for themselves in the future, and so much so that they want to make sure that they don't have children at all. Anyhow, I have some interesting bullet points in here. Responsibility over small or big things. That's interesting. To be honest, I think jobs goes into the same category as roles, but it's like a subcategory of roles. So I'm interested why I broke those up, because I think jobs was what was first mentioned in the previous podcast about how kids like considered their dream jobs, and then I just like wrote roles. Yeah, I really can't think of why I wrote smaller big things. Let's talk about the extreme though, because this is an interesting point. So if you're thinking about like Hitler, Adolf Hitler, and seeing like Germans as the ultimate race, and every other race needs to be exterminated. What if he didn't do that? What if he didn't do what he did? Would he hate himself for that? Do you think he'd be proud of? Do you think he was proud of what he did because the call to responsibility to him was to eliminate all the Jews in the constructive, destructive, yeah, destructive manner that of which he did it? Do you think he was proud of that? Was that the kind of responsibility that he was willing to hold towards himself and honor and stick with it? Oh, that's interesting, because now we're talking about which calls to responsibility do you honor for yourself and which ones do you just need to go get help for. So, for example, one thing that I was experiencing like maybe a half a year ago, and it lasted about like 7 or 8 months, was I had this idea that in the future I was going to get married to someone, in a particular someone who I saw like a lot of potential for, and so much so that I thought it was going to be a prophecy, or so much so that I saw it as a prophecy that I was going to get together with this person. And I was willing to go to like certain lengths to see it through, because I thought it was meant to be. If that's the call to responsibility, to see it through, how do you know whether or not that was something that I should have gotten help for, or something that I've actually should have seen through? It's like hard to distinguish in the moment, because you don't know. You like understanding the signals is just weird, and the context of everything is just, I don't know. When you're the victim of something like that, it's hard to get your it's hard to objectively look at what's happening to yourself. And I think you need to go by the feedback of everyone else to understand where your actual mentality is with those calls to actions. I mean, some other people in more extreme cases think that the only meaningful thing left to do for them is well, I mean, this was my case actually. It's the only meaningful thing left to do is to kill yourself. And then there's also the extra extreme case, which is the only meaningful thing left to do as a school student who's been bullied so much so that they're willing to bring a gun to school. That's the kind of responsibility that they're being drawn to. And they almost think that it's like a prophecy that they need to fulfill. And that gets you to so many dangerous places and leads you to the most negative events that happen in the world. Like even all the terrorist events, there's a call to action to crash planes into the Twin Towers. And there goes 9/11. Everybody has a different call to responsibility. And screening for people who have those huge shifts in like changes in responsibility are the ones that you need to look out for as like dangerous characters. It's like, yeah, I don't even know what that is. You know, I really hated the phrase that I used, which is answering the call to responsibility, because I don't think that's right. Because the way that we're talking about it now is like, it's almost religious. It's almost like non nonsensical at this point. It's like instinctual feelings, instinctual actions. I'm not really sure anymore, but I don't know. We've talked about the extremes when it comes to stuff like that, but people feel this incentive to responsibility, that they see this opportunity and they need to take advantage of it in the way that they see how they need to take advantage of it. And it leads to great things if you can see the good possibility, or like the possibility to do good, and then it's also leading to bad things where people can be as creatively destructive as possible if they see the opening. Maybe it's maybe instead of answering the call to responsibility, it's answering opportunity. I actually think I like that better. It's like answering opportunity is what you're really doing. Because you can either answer it or you can just let it go. And I think the more you let things go when it comes to opportunity, it's it kills you every there are some things that will kill you every time that you don't take a like don't take advantage of the opportunity, and then it's rewarding when you do take the opportunity to do things. For example, if you're not taking opportunities to better like your own health, then I think you feel worse about you feel regret over yourself for not doing things that you should be doing in order to see yourself in a better place. But if you're constantly making improvements towards yourself, I think you're more inclined to think that you're improving and you're bettering yourself in the way that you should be proud of. Honestly, I'm just rambling. We'll see if I we'll see if I can get things back together in these next couple points. What kinds of responsibilities are you being called to currently? Well, usually when I take a look at my room, which is where I am like 90% of my day, if not like 100% or 95%, usually there's whenever I wake up, I have like a set of clothes on the ground because I go to bed and I don't like put them in like a laundry basket. So every day I wake up and I put those away after a shower. When I go into the bathroom, I have to brush my teeth and take a shower when I wake up. When I get back to my room the second time, I have to like throw some of my water bottles away in the recycle bin. So that's like a daily or like every 2 day process or routine that I do. But understanding what those calls are is like a call to yeah, it's like you see opportunities to be more clean, and I think you feel better I think you feel better most of the time after capitalizing on the opportunity. And so after you do that, you understand the behavioral pattern of feeling better, and therefore you're more incentivized to do the same or to do the routine more often. Because in the end, you're going to feel better than what you're feeling now. So that's why you go do it. In terms of other things, like for work, Work, I just need to show up and actually put the time in to learn the things that I need to learn. That's the kind of responsibility that I'm being called into work. And I think they would agree that's what my time best spent would be done. Or sorry, that would be how my time would be best spent. What else? School, attend school, and you know, turn in assignments. So I think those are the kind of responsibilities that like outside factors are looking in on me. Other than like the first ones that I mentioned about my daily routines. I also work out every day, so that's like another daily routine. And I think if I ever put any of those down, then I'm gonna lose like a sense of meaning because, you know, the things that I do now are things that I feel like I should be doing anyways in order to achieve the goal of um, feeling better about the environment because I have some control over it. You know, I can work on my body. I can work on making my room cleaner. I can work on understanding content from school and from work. So, you know, eventually I want to have like a full-time job and hold my own place, be like more responsible when it comes to making food or going out to the store and buying stuff cuz those responsibilities aren't really left on me for the time being. Those are things that I don't have to deal with. But eventually I know I would probably find meaning from doing them. How do you identify these and what are these signals? So, in my case when it came to like keeping my room tidy, I think it's just like a you need to burden yourself with certain responsibilities to understand whether or not the benefits of attending to them are going to make you feel better or not. And I think that the way you do that is just by burdening yourself with responsibilities. So, you know, one of these days at a Thanksgiving gathering, I'm going to like cook the food for the whole family. One of these days, but I don't think that's necessarily meaningful to me yet. But I mean, you can make predictions of what responsibilities you think would be better for you in the long run or just worse for you or like you might feel indifferent about. But yeah, I think you in order to find more in order to find more instances of meaning to you, I think you need to burden yourself with more responsibilities to figure out you. And I think that's very important. How has these responsibilities shifted over the years? You know, I take a look at myself more. And I take a look at like the things around me more. I'm okay with what I'm doing. I think I could be doing more, but you know, I'm willing to give myself some credit for doing what I have been doing already. I know that I could be doing more and I know other people do a lot more than I do. But what's important is that I think I'm doing the best with what I burden myself with. So I don't think there's any problems. But I know, like, as I become more independent and my environment changes, that the responsibilities that I need to tend to are going to be more, there's going to be more of them, 100%. And I don't know if that'll provide me more meaning or less meaning. I guess only time will tell. Okay, so I'm taking a look at taking a look at the rest of the list, and I think there's only two that I really want to hit before I end the podcast. Mostly because like I'm kind of, for some odd reason, I'm dying right now, but we can get back to it later. Anyways, We can do like something else, or revisit in the future. Yeah, it's just been a while since I've talked. Holy moly! Like I feel like I woke up today and I was just exhausted. We also had daylight savings over on the West Coast, so yeah, it's pretty much when everyone agrees to push the clock back by an hour, or is it a clock? Yeah. So we get like an extra hour of sleep, and it's like between 1 and 2, and at 2 you switch it back over to 1. So you get like an extra hour. That makes the time difference between everyone else by an extra hour. Okay, so the 2 points that I wanted to hit: what happens when you don't answer the call? So when you see the moments of opportunity and you don't choose to capitalize on it, I think that leads to regret for you. And the way that you take a look at that is you have to see. I think the way you fix that is by actually taking advantage of the opportunity when it comes up again. I don't think you should live in regret more than you need to. I think regret is a necessary feeling that people deal with, but I don't think it's something that you should deal with all the time, especially if you know you can help it. Understand the opportunity that's in front of you. Make sure to capitalize on it when you see it. I think you should forgive yourself if you don't capitalize it on the first time and it really dawns on you that you should have taken the first opportunity. And once you understand that feeling, or once you feel like the opportunities that you've missed is making you feel regret, I think once you start feeling that, the that's pretty much the opportunity to invest in the opposite outcome. I think you need to actually invest in the opportunity, and I think you'll find more meaning out of that. So I think regret makes your life less meaningful. It's like almost the same feeling as not feeling meaning. And what happens when you do answer the call to opportunity? Well, if you don't like answering it, then it leads to regret, because then you're stuck with constantly answering this opportunity with your own existence. And sometimes that's not what you want. And I think the more that you do it, the more regret that you feel. So I think this is more of a balance between feeling regret and not feeling regret. More so than it is answering the opportunity and not answering the opportunity. I think in the cases that I've dealt with these, and where like most of my regret comes from, is by not answering opportunity when it's in front of me. But I can understand a situation where someone always answers the call to the opportunity and doesn't want to anymore. Like they're overburdening themselves with responsibility so much so that they're regretting what they're doing. In my case, I feel like I'm not answering enough to the call to responsibility, so much so that I'm feeling regret over it. So I think it can actually go in either extreme, and this is more of like a regret, um, more of a regret binary. Anyhow, I actually like that last point, but I think I'm gonna call it there. Thank you guys for listening in. We'll get this updated everywhere. We should have a podcast next week. I don't know what we'll talk about, but maybe we'll revisit something or do like a review of different content out there. But yeah,